This right here is a fruity and sweet little cocktail. This week, let me show you how to make a stone sour. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and like I said, today I'm making a nice fruity little cocktail. I'm making a stone sour, and this cocktail has a bit of a maybe checkered or confusing past because apparently the original recipe called for gin. It didn't call for bourbon, or in this case a bourbon and Irish whiskey, which I'll get to in a few minutes. But it called for kind of a confusing different list of ingredients, and it disappeared in the prohibition era in America as it came back in the 1990s, and it has a bunch of different varieties. I've even seen some people use like apricot liqueur or brandy in it, calling it a stone fruit sour, but this I think is a good modern day version of the stone sour. The modern day version is a whiskey based cocktail. In this case I've got this here Keeper's Heart Irish and bourbon. This is a blend of Irish and bourbon whiskies, as the name might suggest, and it's kind of nice. It's got a bit of like spiciness from the Irish pot still whiskey, but also a bit of like charred oak bite from that bourbon whiskey. So I think it works really well in cocktails, and I think it works really well in this cocktail because we've also got this here, orange juice. Orange juice is one of those ingredients that it sounds like it should work in a cocktail, but because it's orange juice, something about it, it's very sweet, it's very tangy, it's very tart, it kind of overpowers a lot of ingredients when you use it in cocktails. Even if you're using a bit of lemon juice, a bit of egg white, a bit of sugar syrup, that orange juice oftentimes can kind of take over and can dominate. So in this case, that nice bit of spiciness from the whiskey, from the bourbon, from the Irish whiskies, does give you a nice bit of like punch to kind of not fight back against the orange juice, but definitely not to get lost behind it. And like I said, we've also got some freshly squeezed lemon juice. I've got half an egg white, so this here is about a medium egg, so this is about half of that egg white that I've just already pre-separated out there, or if you have a small egg, you can use a small egg. That's about 15 ml, maybe just under 20 ml of egg white, because that's going to give us a nice foamy head. And I've got a little bit of sugar syrup just to give a bit of sweetness and roundness to the cocktail, because there's a lot of kind of sugary, citrusy sweetness coming in there. Now, a lot of recipes online don't call for bitters, but I'm going to be using some bitters. I'm going to be using some Angostura bitters. Normally in a sour, I'll also use orange bitters, but because I've got all that orange notes there, I'm not going to be using any of that. I'm just going to be using a little bit of Angostura bitters to round out the cocktail, give me a bit of extra kind of punch. But that's enough talking about the cocktail. I think it's time we get ready to make it. It is going to be a shaken drink, so I'm going to get my shaker tin. I'm going to pop a nice rock of ice into there before measuring out my ingredients. Starting off with my bourbon. Like I said, this is the Keeper's Heart Irish and bourbon, but you can use whatever kind of whiskey you like that you think will stand up to the flavors in this cocktail. We're going to go in with 1.5 ounces or 45 ml of our bourbon in there before going in with 3/4 of an ounce, so half of that amount of our orange juice. This is going to go in with 3/4 of an ounce, or about like 22.5 ml of our orange juice before we go in with, again, the same amount, 3/4 of an ounce, or about 22.5 ml of our freshly squeezed lemon juice, and then going in with 15 ml or half of one kind of medium egg white into there, and again 15 ml of our sugar syrup. Now normally in a whiskey sour you go in with the same amount of sugar as you would go in with your citrus, but because that orange is quite sweet, we're only going to go in with 15 ml or half an ounce of our plain simple sugar syrup into there, and then I'm going to go in with 1 dash of my Angostura bitters. Like I said, a lot of cocktail recipes online don't call for bitters, or they call for adding things like apricot brandy, but for me I think it just comes together a bit fuller, a little more full flavored with that Angostura bitters in there. So bang the top on our cocktail shaker, shake it away for about 45 seconds to get it really nice, really mixed, and to give us a nice foamy head on our cocktail. Okay, I think that is nicely chilled now, so we're getting ready to bang the top off our cocktail shaker and strain it out into a nice chilled Nick and Nora glass. Now I didn't do a dry shake on there because something about the size of my ice cubes, the shape of that kind of cocktail shaker, I can always get a nice foamy head on my cocktail. But if you can't, or if you're finding it a bit difficult, what I recommend you do is do a dry shake where you shake it without ice. That'll give you a nice bit of a foamy head, then you add your ice to chill it down. So I should have a nice foamy head, as you can see, on my cocktail. Just You get that strained out, because I went for a double strain on this because there's a lot of pulp, because I've got a lot of freshly squeezed orange juice, got my freshly squeezed lemon juice there, because I've got all that pulp and I want the cocktail to be nice and clean on my presentation. Just gonna work this around and let all that cocktail come through. Just like that. So I'm gonna pop both of these back in there and get ready to garnish it. Now while that settles, if you're new here, scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. I put out whiskey reviews, like the review of this Keeper's Heart whiskey every Wednesday. I'll put a link to that review up there, there'll be a link down below. And I put out cocktail recipes where I feature whiskey like this every Friday, and every now and then I put out videos on Mondays where I talk about whiskey. I talk about the whiskey industry and different kind of interesting things that are going on in the world of whiskey. So for my garnish, I'm going to go in with a little dehydrated dried orange peel. Just float that up over the top like that. I'm going to let this settle for another minute, but that right there is how I make a stone sour. Okay, I think that is about as settled as it's going to get, or at least it's about as settled as I'm willing to wait for it. So let's go in and taste our stone sour cocktail. Cheers. Oh, that is nice. Like, the orange is quite present. The orange is definitely there, but because we got that citrus, because we got a nice bit of a punch from the whiskey, because we got that bit of the Angostura bitters going in there, it doesn't overpower the cocktail. We've got the orange flavor, but we've also got the rest of the flavor in the cocktail coming through as well. Like, if you're not familiar with the science behind an egg whites are alkaline, so they're kind of the opposite of an acid, so they will neutralize some of the kind of sharper, harsher, tangy notes you get in the orange. And the lemon juice gives you just this nice silky mouthfeel, but also takes away some of that bite, so it means the cocktail feels a little bit more balanced than it otherwise might have. Yeah, it's definitely like a nice fruity cocktail, but it's not kind of only fruity. I can still taste that whiskey. I can still get that flavor, the profile of the whiskey. I still know I'm drinking a whiskey cocktail, but it's not just whiskey. It's not just fruity. It's nicely balanced. So for me, I quite enjoy a stone sour, so I'm gonna keep on enjoying it, and I'll see you next time. Sláinte.